What's up, everybody? This is Review and Preview. Welcome back. It is great to be back. My name is Tom Scavetta, joined alongside Andy Hopper to my right and to your left. Andy, we're co-hosts on From the Stands. We talk college football 3-4 months a year. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. This is going to be an awesome show.
Yeah, Tom, it is always a very sad off season when I don't get my weekly dose of Mr. Scavetta. So it's always a pleasure when draft season rolls around. We've had a good run of the draft shows we've been doing, and the mock drafts are always fun. I'm excited to be 100% wrong on all of these tonight. But very, very happy to be here. Always fun to get on the mic with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Folks, if you are new to the channel, make sure to check out all of our work at Review and Preview Sports. We're on all social media platforms. You can see them scrolling across our ticker below. Excuse me. Make sure to leave a like on this video. Helps with the algorithm. We're on Facebook, YouTube, on both the Review and Preview page and the Big Blue Avenue page. And then Andy and I will be live with Brian McCardle next Thursday night, live streaming round one of the NFL draft. Andy, it's crazy. It's almost 8 days away. I mean, we're less than 9 days away at this point. I mean, it's going by way too quickly.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's but that's what we want, right? We want it to be here.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL is king. even during the off season, it just feels like, it can dominate the storylines and dominate the media, what we're talking about. Especially, this free agency season was really fun. It felt like it got off to a bang and got off quickly. I know there's been a lot of talk about this class, about like how, as a whole, it might not be the best draft class we've seen in recent years. But I think there are still some very, very talented players and some very, very talented groups that we're going to see. So I'm super excited to break it down. But yeah, NFL draft means summer's almost here, so get me to summer, man.
Hell yeah. Love to hear that. So basically, folks, what we're doing tonight is a round one mock draft. We'll be doing it via screen share on Pro Football Network. But Andy, as you know, I like to tease things over the course of the years. I'm a little outdated in my jokes sometimes. Some really bad puns on From the Stands.
You, Tom, no.
Never that. But without further ado, let's make our way to Green Bay.
Yes, scenic Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Shout out Gabe Slayton. That one. Andy's favorite football team, by the way, right?
Gross.
Oh, man. So let me get this up via screen share. Before we get into this here, Andy, I guess what's caught your eye the most so far? Like, what's been the top storyline for you, if there is one, throughout this pre-draft process so far?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that, kind of stand out to me. I think the whole, what position is Travis Hunter going to play at the next level? Can he play both sides of the ball? And, where's he going to go? I've seen a lot of mocks that have him going to Cleveland. It's kind of a consensus 1-2 with him and Ward right now. I think that's a big storyline for me, is seeing who is going to pull the trigger and how are they going to use him. And then the whole storyline around Shedeur Sanders and, going from potentially projected as the number 1 overall pick. I saw a mock, today with him falling to number 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've seen him in the mid 10s. So I think those are two. I know a little Colorado heavy there. But I honestly, in a lighter year of the draft, it feels like those are, two of the more polarizing prospects, and two that are getting a lot more reporting than others at this time. Oop. Hey, Tom,
I am muted. Let me correct myself. Been on a bit of a sabbatical there. You're right, Andy. I would say outside of those two guys, definitely a defensive heavy draft this year, in my opinion. A lot of trench warfare, I'd like to call it, offensively and defensively. What up, James Montefusco saying, what up, guys? Andy, hope all is well.
Yeah, James, hope you're doing well too, my friend. It's been a while.
Yeah, just fresh back from Jacksonville this past weekend, James is. So,
Duval.
That's right. Interesting offseason for the Jaguars. They were keeping Balky. They get rid of Balky. They hire Cone before the new GM, and then Andy, they hire a kid that's maybe a couple years older than you and I. So
Yeah,
that's another team we'll be talking about. But let's not waste any more time. Just finally finished spreading the show around here. So let's get this screen share up. All right. Make this a little more. I don't know if there's a way to make this any bigger than it already is. All right. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. All right. So the way we're going to do this, folks, we did not flip a coin. So Andy's a diehard Chicago sports fan, huge Bears fan. I'm a huge Giants fan, so it works out because the Bears have an even number pick and the Giants have an odd number pick. So I will do the odd picks. Andy will do the evens. So without further ado, Andy, I honestly think this is the most obvious pick in the NFL draft. The Tennessee Titans, first year GM, second year head coach, and Brian Callahan, not where you want to be as a franchise. Callahan being the Bengals OC a couple years back, he wants to put his footprints on this organization. And I think the best way to do that is by selecting your future franchise quarterback in Cam Ward, a senior out of Miami, Florida. And Andy, on all of the shows we did this year, Cam Ward was definitely the number one quarterback throughout majority of the college football season. And, he definitely earned this right to be the number one overall pick in the draft. And unfortunately, Andy, I think if he was drafted last year, he might be fifth, maybe even as low as sixth on that list based off of who was drafted.
Oh, 100%. He definitely took advantage of going back to school and improving that draft stock. And I mean, he had a phenomenal year for Miami. He had several comebacks, late in the fourth quarter, in the second half, where Miami really had no business, being in these games. And what I like about him is he's a gunslinger. Sometimes you do have to rein it in a little bit with him, but he makes good decisions for the most part. He is able to get out of the pocket, though, but when he's getting out of the pocket and he's scrambling, he's not always looking to run. He's still looking to throw the ball, and that's going to, I think, only suit him well in the NFL because, as well as anybody, Tom, you're not going to have a clean pocket every snap when you're lining up on Sundays. So he's going to have to be able to make those quick decisions, get rid of the ball, and use his feet to make plays. But yeah, I think this is a clear pick here for Tennessee. Obviously, you have Will Levis in town, but what has he done? He hasn't proven anything in Nashville. I know he's battled some injuries and stuff like that, but I think you take your chance here with Cam Ward. Like you said, it's a new coach. It's a new GM. They want to get their guy.
Absolutely. So we're both in lockstep with that one, as I think is 99% of the NFL draft world at this point, barring something miraculous. All right, next up, Andy, you're on the clock. Who are we taking at number 2 for Cleveland? And I feel like this pick has changed at least 3 times over the past several months.
Yes, you can look at it a couple different ways here, right? You could make the case that Abdul Carter is the most talented player on the board. Obviously, PFN has it that way. Here, you pair him up with Myles Garrett. That's a pretty nasty pair of edge rushers, right? But does that matter if you can't do anything on offense? Whereas you can take a guy, I think, in Travis Hunter, you can use him. He's a playmaker. Obviously, I mean, honestly, I think he's a better cornerback than he is a receiver. But if you look at the way that Cleveland is built currently, you know, they brought Jerry Jeudy in. He ended up having a pretty good year last year. You add Hunter as as a second option there. They're bringing Joe Flacco back. Obviously, he's not going to be a future. He's not their future at quarterback, more of so a placeholder. But I think you take Travis Hunter here. This year is just this year for Cleveland. Sorry, as what it usually is. And then you try to get, you hopefully have a top 10 draft pick next year and take a quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree with this pick for them. I was torn between Carter and Hunter, but I think, Andy, you hit the nail on the head there. Hunter is an elite corner. In my opinion, he's got great ball skills, and that's what I think makes him a good wide receiver as well. And learning from a guy who did it in the NFL and, Deion Sanders. So the older he gets, like I think when he goes into the NFL, he'll start off with playing both, but eventually he's going to have to, when he gets closer to 30 years old, if he's still playing, eventually he's going to have to pick one. Right. Maybe not right away, maybe not in his first couple of seasons, but yeah, I think he's going to be a good wide receiver, but I think he's going to be potentially an elite corner, and his size is incredible.
It's just, the physical toll that it has on your body playing that many snaps, both sides of the ball at this level, plus the mental of it. There's just so many coverages and plays and just things you have to learn and memorize. It's hard enough to do it for one position, right? And to try to do that for two at an elite level, it could be tough. But I don't know. He proved he could do it really effectively at the college level. Obviously, the NFL is a whole different beast. But yeah, I think Cleveland goes Travis Hunter at number 2.
All right, so we have Hunter at number 2. Now, I guess my Giants at number 3. It's it's going to be interesting, right? Because the New York Giants have done their due diligence on several different prospects. And all in all, I think if you're the Giants, you have a head coach and a GM that are entering year 4, and they need to keep their jobs into 2026 and beyond. And I think the way you do that is by improving the roster in 2025 and getting more wins. And I think with the moves they've made in the offseason, Andy, I think the best way to do that is by drafting Abdul Carter at number 3 overall. This was not the original pick that the Giants were made out to have, but Brian Dable apparently had breakfast one-on-one with Abdul Carter on Sunday morning. They've had private workouts. He was a top 30 visit. There is a picture of him inside the facility, him taking a picture of Lawrence Taylor, a photo of Lawrence Taylor on the wall.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think that if that doesn't confirm anything again, look, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out this time of year. I know some people want Shedeur Sanders. Some people also might want to explore the option of trading down. Here, you take the best player available unless you get a massive overhaul of picks. I love Abdul Carter. And let's be frank with each other, Andy. Kayvon Thibodeau has not been that good his first 3 NFL seasons. The Giants sort of fell back into him in the 2022 draft. And I think it's unfortunate because in his second season, he had 11.5 sacks, but he wasn't as good that year as he was last year. The sack numbers may not show it. He got more pressures on the QB. It just didn't result in sacks. And I think the blueprint formula of Giants football is you want to build from the trenches inside out. And I think with Russ at quarterback this season, I think you want to surround him by young talent on both sides of the football and put this team in a position to win.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree here. I think, there's been some smoke as of late. I think I saw something that said Shedeur had a visit maybe this week with New York. But yeah, I saw the Abdul Carter picture. Anytime you have an edge that's tweeting like our wide receiver, I think that's a good thing. This guy is ready to go. And yeah, he's ready to play day one. He can step in on the edge and really be a defensive presence that I feel like the Giants have been lacking as of lately. Obviously, you mentioned Kayvon Thibodeau, who has shown some flashes, right? Had a couple injuries, dealt with a couple things, but I would say for as high as he was picked and the hype around this kid when he came out, you are correct in saying he hasn't necessarily lived up to all of those expectations.
Quickly want to shout out Larry Johnson here. NFL draft season. Let's go, Larry. Hope your Cowboys have a really good draft. I say that in the most genuine way possible. Miss seeing you around, Larry. John Suggs. I got Ward, Carter, Sanders, top 3, and Pat's pick Hunter or linebacker from LSU. Maybe he's talking about Will Campbell. I don't know for sure, but he's an offensive tackle. Hunter would look good at Pats or Jags, playing both ways, but limited. Look, we'll see. The Patriots are on the clock, and as are you, Andy Hopper. You are now on the clock.
I do think Hunter actually fits the Jags probably better than any other team as far as their needs. But number 4 here, there's a couple different ways that the Patriots could go, but I think it's got to be the same position. You invested in Drake May last year, right? That offensive line was one of the worst in football. So you got to do something to shore that up, right? Is it Will Campbell, who's really, really cerebral and could probably like the most versatile offensive lineman in this draft? I think you could play him a tackle. I think you could play guard if he needed to. I mean, I think the most impressive thing about this kid that you hear is he was calling out the coverages last year for LSU as the left tackle. That's what the center is supposed to do. But he's just a very smart kid. And I've also seen some people that like Armand Membau from Missouri. They think he might be a little bit of a better athlete, have a little bit more size. But me personally, I go Will Campbell here. I think Will Campbell's the pick. I think he's been universally kind of been slated in this spot. I wouldn't be shocked if they go Membau, but Will Campbell just feels like a classic Patriots lineman to me.
Meat and potatoes type of pick as well. I completely agree with this pick. Drake May was running for his life last year. Mike Onwenu is their best offensive lineman, but he has shifted to the interior. I agree with everything you said about Campbell, but I do have one concern, and it's nothing against him physically. For me, it's his arm length. I don't know if that will transition into a long-term NFL starting tackle. There are rumors about him potentially moving into guard, but I think you got to start him off at left tackle, see how he does. There are guys who have gotten by in the NFL and who have played well. I shouldn't have said gotten by, but have played well with, slightly shorter arm length. And when you have shorter arm length, I think what that does is you have to have better body control, better recognition. And Andy mentioned something very important, Will Campbell's IQ, calling out all the defensive plays while he was at LSU, a lot of disguised blitzes. If he brings that IQ to the NFL, Andy, I don't think arm length will be too much of an issue for him. And I'll be honest with you, Drake May was sneaky good last year. The numbers may not show it. He was on a bad football team, but now with Mike Vrabel running the show there and getting a couple weapons maybe, he might be pretty good. We'll see. All right, next up, Duval, the Jags. This is a tough one for me. I don't know if you've watched, probably not, Andy, but they had a YouTube episode of like the way they hired Liam Cohn and James Gladstone. It was pretty interesting. Trent Baselli, their first ever NFL draft pick when the Jaguars were an expansion team back in the mid-90s. He was their first ever pick. He's now like their VP of operations, basically the assistant to the GM, something along those lines. So him and Shad Khan and now Gladstone are really calling the shots. This is a 34-year-old GM coming from the LA Rams, Really, really bright mind. If Will Campbell falls to 5, he's definitely the pick. However, for the Jaguars here, I would love to say, go out and invest in more protection for Trevor Lawrence, but Mason Graham is the best player on the board here, and they also really struggled at stopping the run last season. And you want to get off the field. I'm looking at this, Andy, right? They drafted Anton Harrison in the first round last year, tackle. Mm-hmm. They drafted Walker Little 2 to 3 years ago. He's going to go in and start most likely. They went in and they signed Robert Hainsey and Patrick McCarry in free agency. So I think they're going to go Graham here, believe it or not. I think tackle is a huge need, and I think M'Boue is definitely an option for them. But right here, I think Mason Graham is the pick.
Yeah, I think you go best available, and he does fit a need. They need a guy that can play the 3 technique. If you look at what Mason Graham did last year at Michigan, he was the highest graded defensive play in the run game as a D lineman. It's just an absolute game wrecker. You can look at the sack numbers and say, oh, we only had 3.5 sacks. Do I really want to invest this much capital? Is this a top 10 pick? It is. You look at the way that he handles the run and just is able to disrupt what the offensive line wants to do in the middle. And then, you put him on a D line with the Jaguars now. They just got Eric Armstead, right? They have Josh Hines Allen. And, that's a pretty good defensive line. Obviously you want to protect Trevor Lawrence, but at the same time, you want to put talent around him, right? There has to be somebody else that can go make a play, when they need it. Obviously that's, a D tackle and a quarterback. They're not going to be making the same types of plays, but you know what I mean? You need talented guys throughout your roster. Your quarterback can't do it all by himself.
Would you have went M'Boue here, or do you think Graham is the right pick for them? I know Graham isn't, it's a good pick for them from the way you drew things out, but would you have went the tackle here?
No, I think I go Graham here. And honestly, I think if you're the Jaguars, you could even think about trading down out of this spot.
Yeah.
With my team, the Chicago Bears, because I think if you're Chicago, you are terrified that Ashton Jeanty is not going to be on the board here after 6. So, I don't know. Look for Chicago to maybe make a move up. If Jeanty gets picked, maybe they move back. But as far as the Jaguars go, yeah, sometimes, it's all different philosophies, right? Are you taking best available, or are you taking positional need? And I think this fits a little bit of both for Jacksonville. And with what you said too, they kind of shored up the line, not fully in this offseason, but they've made a couple moves. They've made, high draft picks with linemen in the past couple years. I think why not take a guy that's been rated this highly and is as talented as Mason Graham. So yeah, I would still go this way. I think I don't necessarily think tackle makes much more sense here.
Awesome. Now let's go to number 6, Andy. Out in Vegas, new sheriff and Pete Carroll. They just gave Geno I don't want to say massive contract extension, but a decent contract extension for a guy at his age. What are they doing here?
Yeah, so they could go a couple different ways here, right? So obviously you got the new head coach and Pete Carroll. You have Geno Smith, who you just traded for. And you have Ashton Jeanty sitting there, who, he's 5'8", so you see that, and you're like, oh, that doesn't really jump out the page at you. But don't get me wrong, this kid is a brick shithouse. The way that these guys, the tacklers bounce off this guy, he was the highest rated rusher in college football in PFF history, dude. He had a 99.9 rush grade via PFF last year. You take a chance on this kid because he is a true bell cow back. I think he can play all 3 downs. He's going to have to get better in his pass protection, obviously. And then, he didn't necessarily show a lot as a passer as a catching balls out of the backfield in college, but he wasn't really asked to, right? they knew what worked for them last year, and that was give him the rock and get out of the fucking way. He was more so in the pass game used as, screens and stuff like that. So he's not necessarily the best route runner, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he can't turn into one. So the other team need here, and which is what I'm really, really hoping the Raiders do, is corner, because I think they were the worst coverage team last year. Like, they were bad in coverage. So, I mean, you look at a guy maybe like a Will Johnson who's right there. Obviously he battled that turf toe and had the injuries at Michigan last year. There's been some other guys thrown out in the mix, but as much as I hate to do it, I think they take Ashton Jeanty at 6.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you. I heard some bad things about Will Johnson with his injury recently. Like, apparently the pro day and the additional workout didn't go that well. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but
no, I haven't. I have not been too plugged into that. No.
Yeah. Regardless, I think Jeanty is the pick here now. A lot of people think, 6 is too high for a running back, but they got nothing. They got Zamir White. This guy's potential to block as well. Look, I'm not a big fan of picking running backs this high, but again, we're putting our Raiders cap on. We're thinking, what do the Raiders do? Not what Tom or Andy would do specifically. What up, Blue Truth with Brian Attard? Good buddy of ours. I know Rangers are eliminated, unfortunately. You know who would look great in Jacksonville? Tyler Warren. I've thought about this. I've actually really thought about this because they let Evan Ingram go. He signed on with Denver. I don't know about you, Andy.
Saying they trade back.
Yeah.
Somebody moves up to 5. Maybe it's not the Bears that move up to 5. I saw a mock that had the Saints moving up to 5 to take Sanders, and right. Maybe it was the Saints moving up to 6. Yeah, it was the Saints moving up to 6 to take Sanders, and then it would be the Raiders dropping back to take a corner. But I don't know. I mean, somebody could move up to 5. Like, for me personally, I wouldn't hate Chicago going 5. You give up 10, you probably have to give up a second round pick as well. But I wouldn't hate that. And then if you're Jacksonville, you drop down and you take Tyler Warren. He'd probably be there at 10. Colston Loveland's probably won't be, because they're both, projecting. I would say Colston Loveland will be there at 10 as well. I mean, if you want to wait till the second round, if you're Jacksonville for a tight end, I don't know if he'll be there, is what I meant to say. But yeah, I could see it. Like, I think that is the hardest thing to predict with these mock drafts, is the trades and what's going to happen on draft day. I cannot wait till that first trade hits while we're live. So I could see it. A lot of people are very high on Tyler Warren, and I've seen people that might be just as high on Loveland as a pass catcher.
This is a great point from Brian as well. I've never thought Trevor Lawrence was a bad quarterback. He is a good NFL quarterback, but the word right now is good. I don't think it's anything more than that. Again, he has won a playoff game. Jacksonville's been, I'll say it, a clown show. It's been a lot of revolving doors. If they can get some sort of competency in there with Liam Cohn, look what he did with Baker Mayfield. Not saying he'll do the same thing as a head coach, but they got the Vikings guy, Grant Udinski, in there. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I wouldn't hate Tyler Warren, but if you want to go Graham at 5 and stay there, you could possibly backload Harold Fannin in the second round out of Bowling Green. That guy's going to be a steal, whoever gets him.
Yep, that's a great point, Tom. I've seen him mocked near late second round, and we talked about him on From the Stands frequently last year, which Bowling Green's not typically getting a lot of love on college football shows. But, yeah, he was outstanding.
But a tight end who did come out of the MAC and is now a Hall of Famer? Antonio Gates.
Could happen.
Miami, Ohio. Or wait, was it Kent State? No, it was Kent State. I'm an idiot.
Kent State, he played basketball.
It was Kent State, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot of stuff there. But I do like Brian's point. I think that's more of an option if they trade a couple picks back. But who knows? Maybe they surprise us and put them there at 5. Jets on the clock. Dumpster fire organization. Need to turn it around with Aaron Glenn. I know Glenn was drafted by the Jets back in 1994. Who would have thought 31 years later he'd be the guy as the head coach making this pick? Better make sure Woody's grandson stays far away. I'm just half kidding there. They have 2 needs. They've also done a lot of homework on Tyler Warren. But for me, Andy, they need to focus on the offensive line. Their offensive line is garbage. Again, I'm not saying this guy's a better prospect than Tyler Warren, but I think you have to go Armand Membou here out of Missouri. SEC body tackle, long-limbed player. Look, I don't even know what I'm going to say other than the fact that the Jets need to build from the inside out. They're not in a position to take Tyler Warren because, no disrespect, Andy, Justin Fields is not garbage, but he's not going to succeed behind a below-average offensive line. He is the type of quarterback, if he is going to succeed, he needs good at worst all around him. And I think if you get Membou, there's a better chance for Justin Fields to succeed. You can get a tight end later on in the draft, but you need the best possible offensive line. I know they went for Fashanu last year and everybody wanted Brock Bowers. They are doing the right thing by taking Membou here at number 7, and that's who I got for them.
I completely agree with this pick. I mean, this kid is an athletic freak for an offensive tackle. They're projecting that this guy is going to be able to move. He's got great feet, be able to stay in front of those, defenders, obviously trying to get to Justin Fields. You brought up a good point, right? You think about Fields. Yeah, he can use his legs. He can hurt you there, but you don't want him to be doing that every single play, running for his life, right? There has to be some sort of protection. There has to be some sort of continuity. And I mean, there's something to be said about just build, start your build in the trenches, start building from there. If you're Aaron Glenn, I think, obviously he just spent some time in Detroit. You try to take a couple pages out of Dan Campbell's playbook and how they decided to build that roster. And I think you start in the trenches and you get a guy like this and you build around him. So yeah, I love that pick for the Jets here.
Shout out Blue Truth once again with that awesome comment. Yep. It's been 31 years, Brian. What are we going to do? Let's go Rangers. Andy, you're back on the clock.
Yeah,
Carolina Panthers.
Carolina, they need some help on defense, in my humble opinion. They just let Brian Burns, well, they didn't really let him walk, but they didn't really handle that situation the best. I don't think they need a replacement there. There is an elite defender staring us in the face on this board. Jalen Walker from Georgia, I think, makes a ton of sense for the Panthers here to step into that role and just really be that, pass rusher at linebacker that they need, who not only can get to the quarterback, but he is not bad dropping into coverage. He's not going to be as polished coming out of the gate as Burns is going to be, obviously, as a multiple year veteran in the NFL. But I think that you hit the ground running with this kid. I think you're off to a great start. Jalen Walker is my pick at 8.
I love that pick. I think they're in contention for guys like Tet McMillan and Tyler Warren as well. But they are in a situation right now where Jalen Walker, they've done a lot of homework on him. They really like what he can do. I think he's a bit undersized to play with his hand in the dirt, but he's a guy, he can come off the edge and he can be a real threat on third down. And, I think, Andy, the question is in the NFL, can he be a consistent 3-down guy? which I think he can since he played for those dogs in the SEC. And Antoine Knapp did a nice job on him in the college football playoff, Andy. But I'll tell you something. He is the best edge rusher in this draft, in my opinion, outside of Abdul Carter. I caught myself there. Oh, man. So I believe that's the first Georgia player off the board. Yes.
Yeah, that's weird to say.
Third SEC. Saints.
This is interesting.
It's very interesting because they could go so many different ways, and the news about Derek Carr just came out. I kind of want your thoughts on this too. I don't want to pick him here, but I feel like I might have to. You know, if you get my gist here, Andy.
Yeah.
I think he's got to go here because Kellen Moore, the new head coach, you don't want to roll your eggs in Derek Carr's basket. I mean, he's not a bum, but he's gotten people fired before. What do you think? Because I think I know where I'm leaning here, but I might do this phone a friend here.
Well, I mean, this pick will tell everything you need to know about the direction that the Saints are going this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because so you get the news about Derek Carr. It's like, okay, do we take Will Campbell's gone. Armand Mimbu's gone. Do you take a Kelvin Banks this early? Do you go receiver? Do you take a Tetero McMillan here? What about a guy like Jahad Campbell from Alabama, who's trending very high? So it's like, do you roll with fucking Spencer Rattler next year and hope that you luck into a top 3 pick and then take a quarterback next year? Tom, their new offensive coordinator, I believe, is Garrett Nussmeier's dad. Do we see them take somebody not named Shedeur Sanders here and tank for Garrett next year to come over from LSU to the Saints?
You got me thinking now, man. Oh.
But no, I think it's got to be Shedeur. It's got to be Shedeur Sanders.
It's got to be, because if he doesn't go here, Andy, he's falling to 21.
He's going to go to 21 till Pittsburgh. And I think if you're the Saints, I think you just start telling everybody you're taking him, even if you're not. Because then you can just start, a team like Pittsburgh. They're so desperate for a quarterback. Maybe they call you up and they offer you a trade that, you'd rather have this extra set of picks or whatever they're willing to throw in than Shedeur. Because don't get me wrong, I think he has potential to be an okay, NFL quarterback. He's a pocket passer. He's got a very strong arm. You think since he's Deion Sanders' kid, he's going to get outside the numbers and run a 4.4, but that's just not who he is.
Right.
So, you worry a little bit about taking him behind that fucking awful offensive line they have in New Orleans. But I think Tom, I think it's got to be him.
This is my thing, too, about Shedeur. He's not bad. He's not as bad as some scouts are making him out to be. I do think he played in a very good pro-style offense because that's what Colorado had under Pat Shurmur. I think Pat Shurmur, who's a former NFL head coach, he's a former NFL OC. He is in teams' ears, and the best way to do this, Andy, the NFC South, where I'll be honest with you, the best QB in the NFC South is Shedeur Sanders' ceiling, in my opinion. He has potential. His ceiling is a top 12 pocket passing quarterback in the NFL. That's my opinion. Do you want to spend the number 9 overall pick on that? You might have to, because right now, if you're Kellen Moore, you need to buy yourself time, and I think Shedeur is the pick. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. I think it's a good fit. I think there's very few teams where he would be a good fit because he wants to start right away, and there's not many teams that have openings for him to start right away. Like the Giants don't. It's going to be Russ this year. The Browns probably roll with the Flacco-Pickett combination. And the Jets are going with Justin Fields. So, yeah, I think Shedor's going here. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's the draft. Shit happens. Yeah. So that's who we're going with there at number 9.
By the way, what is Russ like? What is he going to say to Giants fans? Like, Big Blue Nation, let's giant, or what is his press conference tagline this year? We had let's ride, and then what is it? Giant up. I don't know what the fuck.
Be giant.
Be giant. He'll come up with something stupid.
I don't know, man. And the crazy thing is too, I know the Giants are not taking this guy because Russ took 3 from Deonte Banks, and Deonte Banks took 2. He's wearing 2 this year. So Shedor wears 2. So that's another context clue that I think he does fall, unfortunately, to the Saints, and I think he's very fortunate to fall there.
And not any farther, yeah.
Yeah, let's not mess around here, Andy. Your Bears are on the clock at number 10, and I'm excited for you to break this one down and see if I pick the same guy that you're picking.
Yeah, so I think the Bears have set themselves up very, very well for this draft with the way that they have chosen to attack the free agency, right? You look at who they brought in. The biggest question was the offensive line, and they have rebuilt that line. They have Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman. So I don't really know if they go offensive lineman here because I don't think they need to. I think they will in this draft, but I think you can get away with taking one later. So I think you're kind of in a position where you go best available. And I think in a perfect world, you hope and you fucking pray, if you're not going to move up or down, that Ashton Jeanty is still available at 10. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So you can go a couple different ways here. Do you go edge, right? Do you go tight end? There's a lot of hype around Tyler Warren and how he could potentially look in this Ben Johnson offense. Is it necessarily the biggest need? No, I don't think so. But if you look at this board right now, honestly, I think it makes the most sense. A guy like McMillan, I mean, yeah, it'd be great to have another weapon, but you just took Rome Odunze. You're going to get Keenan Allen back. You still have DJ Moore. To add a guy like Tyler Warren, who we saw the way he was moved around in this Kotelnicki offense last year at Penn State. I mean, fucking Ben Johnson seeing a guy like that on the board has to have him salivating and thinking about all the trick plays and shit he can run with Tyler Warren. So I don't know if this is necessarily what I would do, what my favorite pick here would be, but I would not be upset. I will lock in Tyler Warren at number 10, the Chicago Bears. Just the way that we have set up the way that this draft we're doing right now is fallen, I think that makes the most sense to me with the guys available. You could make a big case for Shamar Stewart off the edge. You can make a case for Kelvin Banks Jr., but I think it'll be Warren.
So who do you want at 10? Is it Jeanty?
It's Jeanty, yeah, because they need a bell cow. They need a running back. They have to have, like, I think DeAndre Swift had his moments last year where he looked fine, but as a whole, like, he's not a 3-down back, right? And he's not. You need a guy that you can rely on, and I think Jeanty's that guy. So,
love it. I mean, I'd love that for you guys. I'd love Tyler Warren too.
I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to be upset if they get Tyler Warren, because I think if it's the way the board falls, it's like at this point, I think it's if you have a guy you really like here as far as best available, you take him. If you feel like you could trade back and stockpile some more picks and still get somebody good value when you move back, I'm not opposed to that either. So, but I think if it's set up this way, Warren's not a bad option.
So I had you as taking Banks. I know Darnell Wright is on one side for tackle. I don't know much about Braxton Jones and how you feel about him. I believe he's the other starting tackle. Yeah. I mean, but you did bring up some good points about how there is tackle depth later on in this draft too that you could address. And yet, when you have potentially the best pass catcher in this draft staring you in the face at number 10, that's a hard pass. That's a very, very hard pass. And I don't blame you, Andy, for making this pick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's a freak. He's 6'6". He can line up anywhere. You can put him at tight end. You could line him up outside if you wanted. Put him under center for trick plays or QB sneaks or whatever, man. The versatility with this kid it seems like a no-brainer here at this point.
All right, so let's get to the San Francisco 49ers, and this is going to be an interesting one, right? They just lost Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders. They lost Dre Greenlaw in free agency. It's going to be very, very difficult to fill some voids that were left this offseason. You know, they sort of need to rebuild their defense a little bit. What is their defensive identity outside of Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, right? Offensively, I mean, Ayuk is still there, but for how long? You got Pearsall last year, who was Pearsall a first-round pick? I think he was.
Yeah, they traded up to get him with like the last pick of the first round.
This is tough. Do they go Tet or do they go Banks? Because Trent Williams is getting old, but that's not who I'm replacing. I'm replacing the other guy, Colton McKivitz, because he is awful. He reaches way too much because his footwork is bad, and he has to compensate for that by reaching, and that leads to a lot of holds. So based off of how this board has fallen, it's difficult, right? Because do you want to draft receivers back-to-back in the first round? I might go Kelvin Banks here, honestly, because you're about to pay Brock Purdy, I'd imagine, and you want to protect him.
Kelvin,
hard to pass on Tet, though. That's the thing. I am going to cave in and take Kelvin Banks. I'm going to be boring. I'm going to be very boring here. I just don't like Colton McKivitz at right tackle for them. I don't. And I know Larry's happy about this, but because he'll wind up getting Tet. But, I don't know. I don't know if this is what they go. I originally had them taking Jalen Walker, but he probably won't fall that far. And I think Kelvin Banks is a nice little compensation prize for sure. He's got good size, good body mass, and he doesn't hold that much, which is good, Andy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you here. I mean, they could go edge, they could go linebacker. I think Campbell might be a name to watch here as well. But if you have a guy like Banks, excuse me, sitting there at 11, and you're a team like San Francisco that likes to pound the rock as much as they do, they love to run the football. It doesn't matter how many injuries they have at running back. Kyle Shanahan loves to run the ball. A tackle is not going to hurt. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with this pick. I've seen him mocked here at 11 in a few different ones. Just obviously, there's a bunch of differing opinions out there, but I don't hate this pick. It makes sense to me.
Absolutely. Let's get to number 12, the Dallas Cowboys, Andy Hopper. You have this pick here. Where are they going? Is it Texas forever with Matthew Golden, or are they going with Tet?
I think it's got me personally. I think it's got to be McMillan. You get a true big body receiver on the opposite side of CeeDee Lamb, like a true threat. I mean, McMillan playing on a pretty just bad Arizona team for the majority of his career, but still looking as dominant as he was and just effortless at times. I think this is a guy that Jerry Jones absolutely falls in love with. You could make the case that Golden could fit just as well in this offense, but I think either way, you have to have another weapon to take some pressure off of CeeDee Lamb. So Tetero McMillan is my pick for the Cowboys.
Completely agree with you. He had a monster game back in week 1. I think Tet's a really good player. He was definitely the best receiver in college majority of the season. Noah Fafita at quarterback, they had some issues there connecting. And shout out Cowboys fan Larry saying, yes, sir, I love this draft. I'm sure you do, Larry. I know you want a weapon next to Lamb. a guy for Dak to throw to, let Dak cook, fresh off his new contract extension. Let's see what he can do now with potentially 2 number 1 receivers on this roster, one of them on a rookie deal. I know I'm hyping up Dallas here, and I shouldn't be doing that, but it's hard to not get excited about that if you're a Cowboys fan, for sure. All right. And plus, if Ginty was on the board, they're probably taking him. Because that means Tet would likely be off. All right. Miami, this is me, right? We're back to the odds.
Mm-hmm.
They need a lot. They really do need a lot. There's rumors about Jalen Ramsey leaving, their offensive line. Your biggest possession is Tua Tagovailoa, and his career almost ended last year. It probably should have ended last year. And it is very, very concerning to me that he's still playing football, even though I'm glad for him that he is. But for his sake, it might not be the best decision. Anyway, besides that, Tyler Booker, I think, is a bit of a reach here at 13. I don't think that's the move. I think you want to go defense, maybe corner or edge rusher. I'm not going receiver because you still have Hill and Waddle. They also brought somebody else in. For me, it's going to be between Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron at corner. I'm valuing corner over edge here for them because their corner room is just absolutely depleted. It is depleted. And I'm not going Will Johnson. I'm going Jahdae Barron out of Texas, Andy. He is going to be my second corner off the board. I like him a lot more than Will Johnson. I think he's going to go higher than people think. That might upset some. This is a bit of a wild card pick, but you got to risk it to get the biscuit. He's good physical, man-to-man, press-style corner. He doesn't commit many penalties. He's got a good nose for the football, and he's experienced, and he's been relatively healthy, something a lot of Miami Dolphins players have not been able to say over the last few years. I haven't seen your jaw drop yet, so I'd imagine you're not too shocked by this one, but talk to me here.
No, I'm not shocked by this. Look, I've seen Barron mocked as high as 6 on some mocks. Look, I don't know if I think that the Raiders are going to go corner or go Barron at 6. I'm just saying I've seen a couple people talking about it, which I'd love that, to be honest with you, and keep Ginty on the board. But yeah, man, I mean, he's just really, really good in coverage. He's super solid. Help Miami on the back end, in the secondary, especially if they're talking about getting rid of, Ramsey. I think Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, could be another guy that gets a look here if they're staying in that secondary. But yeah, I don't think it's too much of a reach really at all. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, it should be Will Johnson, but unfortunately, I just think Barron checks off a few more boxes for them than Will Johnson does at this current point in time. And I think his size definitely gives him a bit of an edge over Will Johnson. But that's just my personal opinion. If you folks disagree, definitely let us know in the comments section. We'd be happy to address it. All right. 14, the Colts.
Yeah, so this one I think will be a big contention for Colts fans because you could look at it a couple different ways. Tight end is a glaring need for them. I think linebacker is also a glaring need for them as well. You look at tight end, you have Colston Loveland on the board, one of the best pass catchers in the draft. And then you have a guy like Jahad Campbell at linebacker out of Alabama, who's been very highly rated. I mean, you could argue at, maybe a little bit of a reach at this point. I know 6'2", 235 doesn't necessarily jump out at you. But I mean, this kid is a baller. I think at this point, with the way they've set up their team, it is a make or break year for the Colts, I think, especially their young quarterback at Anthony Richardson. I mean, they need to see something from this kid this year. Give him a pass catcher, give him a safety blanket, that he can hit in the flat. I think they take Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, with the 14th overall pick right here. Muted again, Tom. I still can't hear you.
All right, strike two. Yeah, not a good moment for me there, folks, but I'm back and fully recovered. Yeah, look, Jim Harbaugh is not going to love this. As a former Michigan Wolverine, he would definitely love to get him for Justin Herbert, but I think this is the right pick. I think Kyle Grantham is slated right now to start. I know they just re-signed Mo Alley Cox, but you need an alpha at tight end. You need a number one tight end, and I think he's filling a lot of needs for sure. What's up, Sam?
Sammy.
Sam Cardona Norberg. Appreciate you tuning in. Says Daniel Jones will see playing time for the Colts this year. I'm convinced.
Open competition for starter between him and Richardson right now. I mean, I don't think that is a bad bet, Sam, at all, which is insane. My younger brother is a Colts fan because he's about to start his senior year at Butler over in Indianapolis next year, so he adopted all the Indy teams. So, yeah, I'll have to ask him what he thinks, but that would be pretty, honestly, it would be hilarious if Daniel Jones beats out Anthony Richardson for the starting job. It really would. It really would. Oh, man.
We're still talking about Daniel Jones.
Danny
6
Dimes.
years later.
And
look, I'll be honest with you.
It.
No, you can't. And I think whoever wins that starting job is just winning the first right to get benched, if I'm being honest
100%.
with you.
Yeah.
Both are going to play.
Yeah.
You know? And it's really not Shane Steichen's fault. It's Chris Ballard. I mean,
no, it's talk about it's incredible. He still has a job.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Jim Irsay's so high on pills, he doesn't know where he's at right now. That's why he hasn't fucking fired Chris Ballard.
Yeah, it's tells you how Andy feels about Indiana. I guess Colts fans eat corn the long way. Safe to say.
Man, well, I have some good buddies that are Colts fans. Like my brother, he's a Colts fan, so I don't like have any hate for the Colts at all. And I'm so close to him. You don't think about it, but I'm only an hour and a half, 2 hours from Indy. So and Indy's a really cool city. Like if you're ever in the Midwest, like it is very walkable. Everything is right there. Lucas Oil is actually a pretty cool stadium. But yeah, it is unbelievable that Chris Ballard still has a job. And yeah, Jim Irsay has no idea where he's at right now. Yes, Sam, good to see you. Hi, how you doing? 15, Tom. Who the Falcons going to take?
Atlanta. This is a tough one. Thank you, Sam, for those comments. Really appreciate it. Atlanta, I'm going with Mike Green here, the edge rusher out of Marshall. I think he goes before Shamar Stewart. I do. He's got good burst. He's got good energy. He's a guy that brings a lot of pop to a defense. I mean, again, G5 school. It's not necessarily a home run pick. It's a risky pick, but I think it's worth it. I think Shamar Stewart, his playing time at Texas A&M was a little bit limited. I definitely think he's one of the better edge rushers in this draft, but I don't know about you, Andy. I'm hearing a lot of pop about Mike Green. I know Atlanta has heavily considered him. They've brought him in for a top 30 visit, and this could be our second surprise of the night if the board falls this way. Mike Green going off the board early to Atlanta, who desperately needs a pass rush. Because to be honest with you, regardless of who's playing quarterback on that team, they couldn't get sacks last year. That's why they couldn't overcome Tampa Bay. They got no pressure on Baker Mayfield. Those games were won by porous Tampa Bay defense. Both of those games were shootouts, and luckily Atlanta got the better, but Tampa still won the division. So that goes to show you where they're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a spot where you're kind of seeing a lot of people think Green could go here. You're also seeing a lot of people think Stewart could go here. Edge is a big need, and I think you're right to say that the Falcons are going to address it pretty quickly here in the draft.
Let's get to number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. Andy, you're on the clock. Who is Arizona taking?
So, man, this is really tough because I think they need help on, the offensive line at the guard spot. They were so close to being a top 10 offense this year and just finished just shy of it. Is this too early for a Tyler Booker? If I look at the way that this board is set up right now, do they take a Will Johnson just as a best available, a top 10 ranked guy? Or do they go with a Shamar Stewart because they also need an edge? This one is tough, man. There are so many different ways that they can go. They just lost Budda Baker. I think if Will Johnson falls to 16, they're going to be hard pressed not to take him. I think Will Johnson from Michigan is the pick. I know the turf toe injuries, but you add him to this defense to take over for, Budda Baker, and it just gets even more diverse. When he's healthy, he is an elite defender on the outside. Will Johnson, 16th to the Cardinals. I'm going to go that.
All right, I'm going to keep going here because my cursor's acting a little weird, so I can't pin the banner. The motorcycle goes by the house. Number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. Well, the problem last year was their defense. They invested a lot of money in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, bringing them both back on similar contracts. Chase's was a little richer. Joe Burrow is the high-priced investment, one of the highest-paid QBs in the National Football League. I think Cincinnati is going edge. It's tough, right? Because based off how the board has fallen, Shamar Stewart is still there. I think he's the pick here. I think he's a guy that's going to be a pretty solid edge rusher in the NFL. He could also play some 4-eye in addition to the 5 technique. He's versatile. You could switch him in. Their interior is not bad with, guys like B.J. Hill, but and Trey Hendrickson, but they need an upgrade over Joseph Osai off the edge. And I think Shamar Stewart provides that. And most importantly, Andy, I think he provides some versatility for the Cincinnati Bengals. Key word there. If they're going to make the playoffs this year, they have to learn how to play a little bit of defense. And you're looking at those AFC North QBs, Lamar Jackson, you play him twice a year. You got to be able to get some pressure on him, and they couldn't do that enough last season.
Yeah, man, you ain't lying. If you're a Bengals fan or literally anyone with eyeballs that has watched a Bengals game, you question if they even care about playing defense. Obviously they just paid Jamar Chase. They just paid T. Higgins this offseason. They're not going anywhere. You could make the case with this pick. Do you try to shore up that offensive line? I love a guy like Tyler Booker here. I love, getting more protection for Joe Burrow here, but also, they just lost, Trey Hendrickson once out, right? I don't believe they've moved him yet, unless I'm behind on that. Sam Hubbard just retired, didn't he? Yeah. So you need somebody on the edge. If it's not Shamar Stewart, I think a Michael Williams from Georgia makes sense here. But yeah, I think either way you go edge or, some more protection. I think, the more that I talk about it, the more I think you're right. And I think edge is the right pick because you just lost your 2 mainstays there for the past X amount of years. And as if your defense couldn't get any worse. Oh, shit.
Yeah, your defense is so bad, but let's pay both of those receivers top money so that there's nothing left for anybody else. I do think Hendrickson is staying, by the way. I do think that is confirmed, but
okay.
You never know. Things definitely change on the flip. Yeah, originally I did have Michael Williams to them, but Shamar Stewart was still on the board in this particular mock, so I have him ranked 1 spot above Michael Williams. So, yep, Shamar Stewart was my pick. Seattle.
So we move on to Seattle here. I think the big storyline here is all the changes they've made this offseason. You ship Geno Smith out of town. DK Metcalf is gone. Tyler Lockett is gone. Who the hell is Sam Darnold going to throw the ball to? Matthew Golden from Texas, the receiver, the best player available at this point, fills an immediate need for them, can come in day one and play alongside JSN. Give me Matthew Golden, Longhorn to Seattle, Tom.
Great pick. Yeah, look, I think he's going to do some great things in the NFL. Definitely one of the top 3 receivers on my board this year. They made the CFP semifinals. He made Quinn Ewers look good. There are a lot of inaccurate throws Ewers made this year, and Golden was there to catch him. So shout out to Seattle for getting a Z for Jackson Smith and Jigba's counterpart. Next up, 19. We'll go a little bit quicker here as we're getting towards the 20s, and I know we are a little bit short on time. Tampa Bay. This is a team that definitely needs some defensive help. Offensively, Andy, they seem like a set team to me, right? You got the offensive line left to right. You know, you got Tristan Wirfs. You got Ben Bredesen you brought back. They drafted Graham Barton in the first round last year. Cody Mauch and Luke Goedeke are serviceable starters in the NFL. And then you have your receivers with Evans, Godwin, McMillan, Cade Otton at tight end, Bucky Irving, and Rachaad White as a 1-2 running back combo. Baker Mayfield has a perfect situation around him. They're not going offense here. They're going defense. Personally here, Derek Harmon or Malachi Starks makes sense. Vita Vea is an awesome nose tackle, but they could use some depth there, and they could use another starter on that front. Michael Williams is also available. And for Tampa Bay, edge rusher is listed as a need. Give me the premium position here. Give me Michael Williams to Tampa Bay out of Georgia. He does not have to move that far either. Maybe just 4 or 5 hours down south.
Oh, yeah. I like that pick. I think, you think of Tampa Bay, and especially recently, it's been very, very good defense. Vita Vea in the middle. You talk about guys like Devin White, Antoine Winfield Jr. in the secondary. Adding to that would definitely be beneficial. I like the pick here. If we move along to 20, I think Denver has some interesting things that they could do here. But I think the biggest thing they need to do is get some weapons around Bo Nix. They just went and got your guy, Evan Ingram, this offseason, Tom. And I think the next logical step for me would be a running back. I know a lot of people don't love running backs in the first round, but I think Omarion Hampton from North Carolina could be the guy here at 20. He is a big-bodied back. He can hurt you on the ground. He had 337 yards through the air last year, and he scored 17 touchdowns. Get this guy the ball in space and let him go to work. They want to be more versatile on offense and be able to hurt you in multiple ways. And I think adding a running back like Hampton is a good step towards that for Denver.
I had the exact same thing. It's a great pick. Fills a need. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is going to be very interesting because as of today, their starting QB for week 1 is Mason Rudolph.
Oh, Jesus.
So I think you know where I'm going with this, Andy, based off of that statement. Jackson Dart's not lasting till round 2. Mm-mm. When you're a team like Pittsburgh, you are constantly in mediocrity. Why? The quarterback position. Ever since Big Ben retired, they have been unable to get out of the first round of the playoffs. I'm not saying Jackson Dart is that or will do that, but you have to take a chance on a QB if you want to revive Mike Tomlin's, long-term future as head coach of the Steelers. To be honest with you, that offense is complete. They have good offensive linemen. They went Fatanu and Broderick Jones the last couple of years in the first round. They spent their last 2 first-round picks on offensive tackles. They are ready to bring in a quarterback. They just got George Pickens and DK Metcalf. Tight end, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington last year in the draft. Give me Jackson Dart. This is an awesome situation for him to succeed. Him and Shedeur Sanders played in the most pro-ready offenses. Jackson Dart playing at Ole Miss. I thought he was a bit underrated this year, Andy. All the hype was around Cam Ward, and rightfully so, but I think Jackson Dart has potential to be the second best QB in this class in 5 years from now when all is said and done. I think he has good posture in the pocket. He has excellent deep ball receivers, catch passes in stride. And you look at guys like Trey Harris, who had very, very successful seasons this year. And I'll be honest with you, Andy, Dart was flushed out of the pocket a lot. He was forced to make plays on the run, and he answered the bell. He really did.
Yeah, I mean, I love the pick. I think it really fills a need here. And I like Jackson Dart, man. Like, the kid can sling it. He was a gamer at Ole Miss. You can make the argument it's maybe a little bit higher, but hey, higher than he probably should go. But if the need fits, and if you're Pittsburgh at this point, you have fucking Mason Rudolph as your starter. Yeah, I'm taking all the chances in the world on Jackson Dart at this point. I know there was conversations about mutual interest between them and Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe anything has come of that to this point. So yeah, I'm lockstep with you here on this pick, Tom. If we go to 22, the Chargers, this is an interesting one. We made a comment earlier that old Harbaugh would not be very happy that his guy Colston Loveland potentially not on the board. So I think they go a different way because I think they could wait. So do you go D tackle? Do you go a receiver? I think those are the two big ones you're looking at here. And I feel like as far as those two positions in this draft are concerned, you take a D tackle now and you can get a receiver just as good as you can get now in the second round or whenever you want to take them. So I think he stays Michigan and goes Kenneth Grant over Walter Nolan and Derek Harmon. Kenneth Grant to the Chargers. The Michigan connection here with Harbaugh. A lot of, obviously we talked a lot about Mason Graham at the, at the top of the show. Throw this kid's tape on because he looked just as good, if not better at times than Graham last year, Tom. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I mean, this kid's a baller.
The fit makes sense because of where he went to school. He is a baller. I did have Harmon ranked higher than Grant, but I think if you're the Chargers and you're looking at this, Grant's draft value is not too far off from where they're picking. You could make the argument that Grant is a back end of the first round talent, and we are starting to approach the back end of the first round here. So, yeah, Andy, I could totally see them making this pick. I went same position as you, just a different player. All in all, not a bad pick. People will be like on the surface, oh, it's a reach. But when he starts playing and when he starts producing, people might have a different opinion on this pick. So we will definitely see. Good stuff as always, Andy. Love when the two of us think outside the box a little bit here. That's why we're here. That's why we're content creators. That's for sure. Next up, the Green Bay Packers. This pick screams defense for me because the Packers always draft defense, it seems. They ever since Rodgers was there, they never gave him any help. But in all honesty, they could really use a linebacker. They really could. I know you want to build around Jordan Love. I don't think Tyler Booker makes sense here because their guards are pretty serviceable. You could argue Josh Simmons potentially for them. If you want to replace a Rasheed Walker or a Zach Tom, I don't think either of those guys have done a bad job since going to Green Bay. Elton Jenkins is still there. You got Sean Ryan. That's not a bad offensive line. I don't know about you, Andy, but I think Jahad Campbell might be the pick here for the Green Bay Packers. I think he brings a lot of talent playing in the SEC, sideline to sideline scraper, good tackler, good form, and he's been relatively healthy. So I like Jahad Campbell to go to Green Bay here.
Yeah, I like the pick. I'm very high on Campbell. I think he's one of the best linebackers in the draft. It fits a need for Green Bay, and it makes sense as far as where you're at in the draft and where he's rated. So, yeah, I'm all in on that. So, Campbell to Green Bay, sticking in the NFC North, 24th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings. This is another interesting one. I think I keep it pretty simple here. I think I go safety because you have two very, very good safeties still left on the board here for us, Tom. And you have Harrison Smith. You know, he's going into the, he's still got something left in the tank, right? But he definitely is going into the twilight years of his career. Your Notre Dame guy, Harrison Smith, has had a hell of a career up there in Minneapolis. I'm going to take Malachi Starks. I've seen a lot of people go Emanwari here. But I believe in most of those mocks is because Starks was already off the board. So I'm going to take, in my opinion, the best safety at 24. I go Malachi Starks from Georgia to Minneapolis.
A-plus pick. Fills a need, much needed. You got really good receivers in Detroit and Chicago. You have Jaden Reed to worry about in Green Bay. You need to be much better pass defensively. Minnesota's front seven was not the problem last year. They had good edge rushers in Grenard, Van Ginkel, Harrison Phillips, guys like that were able to get to the QB. Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman. Their problem was the back four. Byron Murphy wasn't bad. Harrison Smith's getting a little bit older, a little bit slower. This is an awesome pick for Minnesota. And if they want to win the NFC North and compete with Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay, they got to get some help on that back end. Love the pick, Andy Hopper. Next up, Houston. We got a problem. And that problem is, how are you going to get C.J. Stroud back to rookie year form? If we're being fully transparent with one another, folks, Stroud regressed last season. Why did he regress? He was running for his life the whole season. He was making bad reads at times. And there's a player on the board that I really think is going to mesh well with this team, and it's offensive tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I think this is a good pick for them. He could play on either side of the line. You need to protect C.J. Stroud. And where did C.J. Stroud go to school? Ohio State. So he knows a thing or two about Josh Simmons. There is chemistry there. And if Stroud wants to take a leap in year 3 and get back into that top 10 QB conversation, I think this is the move for Houston. And you want to just hate to keep winning one playoff game and then get bombed in the divisional round like they have the last 2 years. So that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get this here. You get that sense of familiarity with C.J. Stroud and Simmons from their Ohio State days. You shore up the offensive line. You feel pretty good about the weapons he has at this point. So it's not, you see a guy like Emeka Egbuka there, a guy he's thrown to before, and you may get a little excited about that. But I think this makes sense. Tom, you're the meat and potatoes guy. So you go tackle here. I like the pick. If we move on to number 26 and the Rams, I think this one's really interesting here because you see a guy like Derek Harmon that's fallen, but they don't really need a D tackle. You have a high-level guy, in my opinion, in Walter Nolan. But really, I think it's got to be a corner here. And I think it's going to be a guy that you could maybe say you're reaching for, but I go Trey Amos from Ole Miss as the pick here for the Rams. Damn it. I spit it out. Trey Amos from Ole Miss. So I've seen him mocked here a couple times. Obviously, we can see here he's not the best cornerback left on the board, according to PFN. But I think the SEC game translates really well to the NFL. This is a big athletic kid, and I think he can step in and really help a Rams secondary that needs it. I believe their corners were graded out at like 65 by PFF last year. So they need some help in the corner position. And that's not necessarily a sexy pick if you're a Rams fan, but it just fills a need.
Yeah, and at this point, you got to go with who you think is going to be the best for your team. And in this situation, Trey Amos might be the guy. Baltimore. This is an interesting one, right? They lost Patrick McCurry to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Awful center, but turned out to be a great guard for them. So guard is an option here. Defensive tackle outside of Matabike, I'm not so sure. Also, shout out Mark Alkins saying the Colts aren't called the NFL's glue factory for nothing. I see what you did there, Mark. Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah, look, for Baltimore, I think you go in the trenches here. Guard is an option. Tyler Booker is there. Gray Zabel is there. I'm going to go with the best guard on the board here for the Baltimore Ravens and go with Tyler Booker. I thought about Derek Harmon, but I'm thinking about Lamar here, and you got Cleveland, who you play twice a year. Myles Garrett, they lost to Cleveland once last year. You got Pittsburgh with Watt and Highsmith. Keanu Benton up the middle. Cam Hayward is still there after being a million years old. You got to protect your franchise, and that's Lamar Jackson. This is a Lamar Jackson type of draft pick here, and I think it's the right one. I could easily see them going Gray Zabel, though, if Booker is off the board.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is kind of like a pick your poison if you're Baltimore here. I think you even make a case where you could go Derek Harmon if he's left at this point. Yeah. So we move on to the Lions. Another NFC North team here. There's a guy that I've been looking at that I think really fits the Detroit mold that they could bring off the edge, and that's Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. I feel like he fits that Dan Campbell type of player. He came to Texas A&M from Purdue, had a really, really good year this year, fits that type. They need somebody opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, right? And they kind of surprisingly, Tom, I don't know how you felt about this, but I was a little bit surprised they let Zadarius Smith walk at the end of the year. I know they have a couple of the rotational guys there, but they really have yet to have somebody kind of take that other side just over from Aiden Hutchinson. I think Nick Scorton could fill that need for them pretty well.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest issue for them last year was their defense was too banged up in the playoffs. You want to get a guy who can come in and be an immediate contributor. You talk about Zadarius Smith. I think he's an older player who might have cost them a little bit more. They want to get a little bit younger at the position. Mm-hmm. And I think to pair a guy like this next to Aiden Hutchinson is great for his development and growth in the National Football League. So I have zero issues with this pick whatsoever. Look, a guy who gave Notre Dame a problem or two back in week one many moons ago. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting one for sure. Washington is on the clock. We're not used to calling Washington's name at number 29 overall, but that's because they hit the jackpot with Jaden Daniels last season. For them here, this could be a couple of different guys. I think they could go best player available. I think they can go offensive line. I think they can go edge. James Pierce is still here. That's a possibility. For me, Washington couldn't stop the run well last season, and Harmon has fallen this far.
You almost have to, right?
You kind of just have to take him here. I didn't think he was going to fall this far, but he has. Derek Harmon, you are a Washington Commander. Huge man. And you need to stuff the run. I know Jonathan Allen went to the Minnesota Vikings. I believe they still have Daron Payne, but I don't love their depth at that position. I think Darren Harmon gives you one of two things, Andy, or gives you both things. value and positional need. If you can get both late in the first round like that, that's a score. And that might be a top 5 value pick in the first round of this draft.
I love it. Yeah, I like the pick. I like the pick. At this point, it kind of felt like it's like, man, how far is he going to fall between the two of us here? And it just was like, well, okay, this really does fit a need. So it makes sense. It makes sense at 29. If we move on to 30, we go to the Bills. Let's go Buffalo. They need some help on defense, in my opinion. And do you go with a guy like Emanwori at safety? You know, they can make the argument they probably need somebody more on the outside than they do the back end. And with what they've done so far this offseason, Larry Ogunjobi, Joey Bosa, they have completely rebuilt this defensive line. And who better to add to the interior of that than the former number 1 overall player in his class going into college? Give me Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, the defensive tackle, to Buffalo to form one of the better defensive lines going into next year. Obviously, he's just a rookie. He's got a lot to prove, but you put him next to Ed Oliver on the inside, and I like how that looks.
Love it. In the trenches. Yeah. Right next to Ed Oliver, like you said. Stand-up guy. Really, really good against the run. Love it. SEC tested. Another great value pick. Here with Kansas City, they could go multiple different ways. Big reason why they lost the Super Bowl this year is they couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes. The offensive line was awful. It was reminiscent to the Super Bowl against the Bucs back in 2020. So with that being said, I think if Gray Zabel is still here, Andy, I think you might take a stab at him. So I'm going to give Gray Zabel to the Kansas City Chiefs, although I don't love that because I think Zabel is really, really good. I don't want the Chiefs to be really, really good forever. But again, they always seem to get good value at the end of the first round in a lot of these drafts. You look at Xavier Worthy last year, for example, a great late first round pick. Not that he was super productive in the postseason, but he was a contributor throughout majority of the season. And I think Gray Zabel is the first non-North Dakota State quarterback to go in the first round of an NFL draft in over 15 years, guys. The last 2 North Dakota State players to go in the first round, Trey Lance in 2021 at number 3, and Carson Wentz back in 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, an FCS program school. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think shout out Trey Lance. I think he just got another contract to go be a 3rd-string quarterback somewhere. So good for him, man. Holy shit. Not a bad gig if you can get it. But rounding out the first round, number 32, the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is interesting. So I went Nolan with the pick at 30, and I was because I was expecting to get Harmon at 30 to the Bills, and you took him at 29. So I'm going to go a little different. I think they have the luxury of being able to kind of do what they want and take best available. So they go Emanwori, the safety from South Carolina here. I know it's not necessarily a huge need for them, but I still feel like they can get a decent edge rusher with their next pick. So I go Emanwori from South Carolina at 32. He was a big body guy in the secondary for the Gamecocks this year, and I think he translates pretty well. It was very highly graded on PFF. I believe it was like an 87.5 or something this year. So I'm pretty high on this kid. I don't know if he's going to fall to 32. I really don't. I'm so excited for this first round. Tom, this was an absolute blast tonight. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. This has been awesome. We send Nick Emanwori to Philadelphia for the Eagles. Let's screenshot this mock draft 3 quarterbacks go in round 1. Andy, I know you got to go grab the kids, so I don't want to keep you any longer. This has been awesome working with you. And yeah, I'm going to see you next week for night 1 of the draft. We have a lot of prep to do.
Night 1, yes. Yes.
A lot of study sessions, film sessions, a lot of notes to be taken, phone calls. Yeah, it's going to be interesting over these next 9 days, Andy, but I'm happy to get to do it with you once again as our yearly little thing.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to get to share the airwaves with you, my friend. And yeah, make sure you guys take a screenshot of this so you can show us how wrong we are on actual draft day. Man, it's so fun to do this and like try to get into the mind of a GM for, as minuscule amount of time as we are, spending on this. And obviously we have our own teams that we're rooting for, so we're not as plugged into all 32. But, going in and saying like, all right, yeah, this is what they got this year. This is who they signed. It's just such a fun process of being like, well, this guy would fit here. This guy would fit here. And then, we do the college football show. So just so much of actually, watching these guys at the college level and just seeing them actually, translate to the NFL, get picked and all that stuff is really cool. So, as always, Tom, thanks for having me. I do need to go figure out what we're doing with the kids. And then I've had a couple libations on the stream this evening. So I do need to go drain the main vein, if you know what I'm talking about, Tommy boy. But thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. 6 man off the bench for Review and Preview Network, my friend.
Absolutely. On behalf of Andy Hopper, my name is Tom Scavetta. Thank you all for tuning in tonight to this round 1 live NFL mock draft show. Make sure to ring the bell for notifications, like and subscribe if you have not already. Share this podcast with your friends. And I'll leave this here shortly, running across our ticker for the next couple of seconds to check us out on social media. We will see you all next Thursday night, 8 p.m. for our round 1 live stream of the NFL draft. Myself, Tom Scavetta, Andy Hopper, and Brian McCardle. We appreciate you all, and we will see you next week.
Bear down.